What is up, Miami Car Cartel? John here with another fun, energetic, hopefully educational and entertaining video on how to be a better commuter. That's right. We're out here in the streets. Miami has some of the worst traffic, maybe in the country. I'm not sure. It's debatable, that's for sure, but we're up there. I know it's got to be top five. Our infrastructure is not bad. We got I-95, we got back streets. I know there's some other states and roads in the world that have probably 3 lanes, 5 lanes. I know Cali, West Coast is pretty messed up. I hear Atlanta's pretty bad. I hear New York is pretty bad. They got public transportation. So I know the best of both worlds. I grew up in New York. So I knew what it was like to have the rail, the metro, the underground, the subways, all that. And on top of that, the road. So I always go for the best route. And my wife had some great ideas and input on her style for commuting, and she's used to a little bit of a longer commute. But for me, I'm not the best commuter. So I'm going to honestly say I'm a poor commuter. I actually try to avoid the commutes. Today, I want to talk a little bit about that and moving from not even being in New York out and just in general of where my lifestyle was and where I lived in relation to where I was going. I would always end up kind of engineering my where I lived, where I worked to kind of close. And anytime I would look to where I wanted to be or what I wanted to do, I'd always look at the commute because I know that not it's if you think about it, like you're sleeping for 6 to 8 hours, that's a day, that's a big part of your life. So if you got a 1 hour, 2 hour, twice a day commute, that's a big part of your day and a part of your life also. And I also looked at it as if you're in the car for that long, what could you be doing? What else could you be doing that you're not in that car? Yeah, learning, watching, reading videos. Watching and reading is probably not the best. Listening is your only thing you could do. Texting, obviously, it's no man's land. You can do it whatever you want nowadays, but it will increase your chance. And then the longer you're out there on the road, you actually do get an increased chance risk of getting into a collision. We've all been in a couple. The more you're out there, they actually say they come closer to your home, which is messed up. You're at the end of the long day and you get there and wham, right? You're almost home, so you're kind of home free, and then shit happens. But yeah, when I was coming from New York, well, when I lived in New York, I always look at the commute of to where I would work. I was a master of pretty much aspiring mechanic, so I pretty much could choose car dealers, car shops on where I wanted to be in relation to where I wanted to work. Now, being in New York is not cheap to live, so you have to have a decent income. Lucky me, I already had to find a decent income and kind of set the bar at a higher standard. Most people, they'll live in an area where it's lower cost, but they'll commute to the higher cost. So you'll see that's kind of natural way the rush hour traffic goes. It'll be more kind of lower cost areas. Doesn't mean it's bad. It could just be lower cost property. It could be bigger properties. The more you get to the city, the smaller the property is. So depending on what your needs are, if you got a family, if you're taking care of more than one person, 3 people, you got a wife, a kid, a dog, all that stuff, you're probably going to be living a little bit on the outskirts. Now, if you wanted to live in the city where you are, it's going to be more expensive and you're going to pay a premium actually. And actually, I'm thankful that I was kind of raised in that environment. So I already did it. I already knew what it was going to be. I stay where I work and I know where I'm going to commute. So I'll be 10, 15 minutes max from my job. And that was always a major part of my life. And I always made sure that was. I'll even go to the point where I'll look at which way the traffic flow is, because you could tell every morning which way it's going. It's not going both ways. It's always going towards a major city. It's always kind of coming from out west or whatever way it is. You could also have that morning where you're driving directly into the sunrise. That's a killer. You'll see a lot of traffic get jammed up just because you're driving during that sunrise hour. So there's a lot of things going on. And it's crazy to think about this that much, but it really does matter in your life and what you do and what part of your life you are in. Sometimes you don't have a choice. And this is probably the majority of people that are in this kind of traffic where they're like trying to find another job. Maybe they're doing what they have to do to go to a city to get a higher income and they don't live in that area. So the majority of people are going that way. That's hence the rush hour. And then when everybody gets out, they're going the same way also. The service industry jobs, where all the offices are, that's where the people are going to gravitate to. And that's probably where opposite of people where they're living. And you'll see it in every single city across the world. It doesn't matter where you are. There is major commuting, and that's why there is different areas of transportation and there is different ways to get to work to avoid all that. Main tip for me is just avoid the commute. And yes, I do pay the premium to live near where I work, but I've never looked back and never looked at the other way. So that's one thing. If you're not that type of person, you will have to engineer your commute in a way that does suit you. You will have to wake up earlier. You will have to have a good running car, or you will have to have a good relationship with another person, or you guys could commute or could carpool. You will have to find a job that's in the area that you're willing to sacrifice to go to. What's your threshold for how long of a commute it is? I've worked as a mechanic in New York, and I've seen people drive from Pennsylvania. I've seen people drive, that's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Pennsylvania had super low living costs, and when you drive to New York, you're gonna double your income, which is great. But how much of that day are you willing to sacrifice? How much of that drive, if you could always turn into something positive, that drive you could turn it into something where you're learning that you don't really have much of a choice if you are. And the majority of people don't have a choice, which is why it makes it kind of like an extreme sport. And where you will see people getting edgy, getting aggravated, because some people that are getting off on and off in two or three exits, that's whatever. That's chill. That's not too bad. That's 15, 20 minutes maybe. But you're getting on the highway and there's someone that's been there for an hour. There's someone that's behind or trying to get through, or who knows. And here comes you just bopping along. That's me. I'm pulling up. Hey, I live right by the highway. I get on and I get off. No, seriously, when I moved to Miami, it opened my eyes because I knew that I wanted to live and work in Miami. So when I started here, I was found a job directly in Miami, but I didn't have a place to live quite yet. So I wasn't on my feet. Like we said, the circumstance of you don't have the choice. I was living in Weston and commuting to Miami. So it's an hour up and then 20 minutes or 30 minutes west. And that's a nightmare. I'm going all the wrong ways. I was so stressed out. I couldn't find a barber. I was in a new city. Even my route, I had no idea what it was like. And I just dealt with it. But I was really, really stressed out. In the meantime, I was looking at the other end of the city for a place to live. So I would drive hour and a half to work, get there, and then I would drive again down to the city to see where I would want to stay. And when I did, I landed in Brickell. I was like, wow, this isn't bad. I love it here. It's beautiful. I'm near the highway. This is cool. But I realized that when I started going to work, I moved there. Boom, let's go. Let's make the jump. I'm close. I'm less than 10 miles away from work. I jumped there. All right, so I did a 6-month lease. That's the way to do it. Don't do a year. Don't buy yet. Do just a lease. Definitely that's another topic. But where you live is definitely a major impact on how you're coming into work, how you're making your income, how much time you have left in your day. So less than 10 miles, right? I get there. I'm like, all right, this is dope. I'm right next to the highway. I'm like, okay, cool. Takes me Brickell. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It takes me like 15 minutes, 20 minutes to turn a corner or to get to the highway. I was like, damn, this is messed up. So I'm like, all right, I could kind of live with this. This isn't bad. Once I'm on the highway, it's straight shot, north a couple exits, boom, jump off at, where was I working at the time? Like 79th or 125th Street for you guys know that Miami. That's not that bad. But then I would get home, same deal. The Brickell has kind of surrounded by water, right? You got 3 bridges around there. So a bridge would go up and I'm like, wow, what the hell? At first I was like, this is sick. Like, what is this? A yacht coming through here? I'm like, this is kind of cool. And then I'm like, yo, this is messed up. This bridge goes up and it pretty much shuts down downtown for like 10, 15 minutes. And then the cycle starts over again. That's twice within the hour. I think they go up every first quarter or last quarter, depending on what bridge you're around or what they are. I'm like, all right, man, this is enough of this. 6 months. I'm like, all right, it's time to go. I got to get out of here. I'm like, let me just go on the other side of the bridges. Let me go from Brickell. I went to downtown. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm in downtown. Literally, my building was above the Whole Foods. It was on Second Ave. It was a brand new building. It was like, my apartment was expensive as shit. I think it was like 3K, and it was tough. But once again, I was accustomed to that lifestyle, making money, making 6 figures as a mechanic. Anybody could do it. That's a side note. If anybody needs help as making money as a mechanic, or anybody needs help making it in any city, hit me up. I'm definitely down for that. I've done a lot of cool stuff, and I'm down to help anybody that wants that, because that was a dream to me. Anyways, I get to downtown, right? I'm like, cool. I'm right next to the highway, literally right next to 195 on ramp. I just got to get out of my building and go around my building. It took me 15, 20 minutes to go around my building. And I was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "This is insane." I was like, "People, like, how is this possible? I cannot do this. I cannot live like this. I'm not doing this anymore." So that was another year lease, I believe. That's when I was like, "All right, I'm not giving up on this. I'm still gonna find my dream commute," essentially. Now, mind you, even with all that going on, it was like probably 30, 40 minute commute. Less than an hour, right? Close, but less than an hour. So like getting downtown, that was kind of stressful. Oh, the reason I left that Brickell was, like I said, it wasn't that bad. 30 to 40 minutes. There was just one traffic cam near my block that everybody would just suck that. Everybody sucked that life at that traffic light. It was like a 2 lane turn every single quad intersection. It was like an 8-way intersection. It was pretty nuts. And people would just, whatever, like looking up skyscrapers, just whatever, texting. I got three of those mother efforts. I got three of those tickets. That was like one ticket was like 225 or at one point. I was like, this is insane. I was like, this is batshit crazy. Parking I could deal with, your monthly parking, your VIG, whatever it is, 150, 200 to have a car down there. But I was not having those traffic tickets. So that's why came over the bridge. Now I'm in downtown. Same deal. Get around the block. Or if there's an event going down, which there always was, downtown, there's always something happening, which is great. That's why I love Miami. You could step out any day and there's always something going on. When you're inside and in there, it's great. But getting to there, it's a pain in the ass. So it is what it is. You can't complain about it. You chose to be there. You chose to be in that heart of whatever city you are. These people should get it. No, like you wanted to be there. Like either that, don't drive or do something else. Anyways, that lasted about a year. Go up a little bit north. I found my little sweet spot, 39th Street and 195 in Biscayne. And it's been a dream living here. I recommend it to anybody. And I have a little shortcut where I just hop on the highway. It's a little legal turn. No, probably if you live down here, you probably done it. But a little U-bop, you get on the highway, boom, you're shooting, you're right up. And if that's jammed up, I take Biscayne up. I go Biscayne 40 blocks, cross the tracks and go up a little bit more, easy peasy. Something like that. I could come home for lunch. Anywhere I've ever worked or lived, I've always been able to come home for lunch. I've always been able to maybe take a dip in the pool, maybe barbecue, fire up the barbecue. My wife and kid are at home now. It's great. I come home. If I'm running behind in the morning, I don't get food. I just come home. She's there. My kid's waiting for me at the door. It's a good little decompress for when I get home, and then I get back after I get back out, and then I could put in another 3, 4, 5 hours maybe. And people at my job are just or any job, they're normally psyched. They're planning for their commute home or the next day, which is like they'll try to ride a little earlier because it's like once you're going in rush hour, it's tough, man. It's really tough. And if you guys are in there and you're commuting over 40 minutes, shout out to you guys for doing that for yourself, your families, all that. It's just not for me. So I'll always always go the extra. I'll do the extra. I know we're all about cars and stuff, but I even go to the point where I would ride a bicycle to work sometimes. And that goes with living close to work. I'd be able to ride a little over 10 miles a session. That's like a 15, 20 minute. It takes the same amount of time to ride a bicycle. That's messed up. I can't remember what my best times were, but it's a nice little energy when you get there. It also makes me respect cyclists a little bit more on the road. When I'm driving on the road and I see them, I'm like, all right, I get it. I get it now. I'm not talking about you guys that are on Sunday taking up the entire lane. I'm not talking about you guys. That's different. We got words for that. Hey, if you're traveling at 30 miles an hour and you're holding down a lane, that's cool, man. You guys are doing strong. But if you're just a whole fleet of you guys taking up the whole block and you guys are just causing problems and we're trying to get around you, and while getting around you, you're trying to curse us out and someone gets hit and run over, it's not a good look, man. It's not. Yeah, so that's what pretty much where I'm at with commuting. Like I said, I'm not the best commuter, but I will find a way to try and be calm, cool, collected. Main takeaways is just live where you want and commute where you want. Build your life around your commute, I might say that. Think about of the time that you spend in there. And if some of you get this, like you guys, some are you YouTubers watching this where you're already working from home. Some people have been able to work from home for a very long time now. And that's one of the beauties of it. And that you just got to think outside the box and think about what's most important to you and um, how you really want to live your life. Going back to that, I have every car accident I've ever been, it's been for freaking commute, man. I mean, it's one thing that I did have my kind of street race car as my daily. Don't recommend that. Your daily should be something that is not that wild that you could get around, that if you did cross a line real quick or something like that, or if you did scuff up or wheel, if you hit a pothole, crack something, crack the wheel, it's all good. You just throw a couple hundreds at it and you're back to business. But if it's something where you're like walling out, you're doing burnouts at every light, been there, weak tires, rainy day, that's it. RIP. That was the end of my dream car, man. So now I respect it more. I respect the commute. I respect the people in the commute. I understand. And living in paradise definitely has a cost. It makes it easier when it is nicer and there is palm trees around and you get to kind of appreciate all that. But you got to pay attention at the end of the day. That's my spiel. That's what I got. I don't know if I really helped anybody. Maybe I helped some people put some things in perspective. Maybe you're like, hey, now I gotta look to live somewhere else, or I gotta look to work somewhere else. This guy is nuts. I don't know. Let me know in the comments how long what's the longest commute? What's the longest you'll drive for the amount of money you make? Or what is the longest you'll drive, period? Or if you're just yay or nay, give me something in the comments. Let me know. This is Miami Car Cartel. No boundaries here. All things. This is Miami Car Cartel. I love you guys. Thanks for tapping in. Thanks for listening. Take care. We'll see you out there on the streets. Be safe. All right. Peace.